They are not anywhere close to perfect. Maybe they'll never be perfect, but they're not even in the direction of perfect. And we're going to get into that right now. Darkstar, the official world golf rankings, the OWGR, how do you describe it? They are laughable, says Jon Rahm. They're terrific. They're the best we can do, Rory McIlroy. They suck. A lot of players saying that. A lot of players in Europe saying that.
Yeah,
so what are they really? I'll tell you what they are. They're a work in progress. They are a work in progress because they are not anywhere close to perfect. Maybe they'll never be perfect, but they're not even in the direction of perfect.
Well, they're off in a major way. It's a bottom-up system.
Top-down. It's a top-down system.
Well, the bottom players are being
but it was formed
weighted
by a committee of select people that created a system with the players sort of, we'll think about them second. Maybe not at all. The governing bodies got together. The Augusta's part of that process, the PGA Tour, and came up with a system. It's central planning 101. It's like these, totalitarian countries. They're like, we'll just plan the economy. And, the people, it'll work for the people. Well, no, that's a top-down system, and it's not working for various reasons. But I know you had some great thoughts on the fact that it's not even attempting to rank all the players that deserve to be ranked or need to be ranked.
Well, the system is they screwed up in the sense that the original concept of Mark McCormick was you're looking just at the top 10 guys. Top 10 guys get points,
in a tournament,
heavily weighted on victories.
Tournament.
In any particular, heavily weighted. And now they've gone 180 degrees opposite, and it's like everybody gets a point, everybody gets a trophy. I don't like that. So once again, the pendulum has swung too far to the other direction. Obviously, the comments from Rahm, there's two camps. There's the Rahm camp where it's laughable. There's the Rory camp where it's wait and see. Well, the wait and see guys are great because we're eliminating the LIV golfers, and as we've discussed, the narrative needs to change. If you're going to rank everybody, if you're going to be the official world golf ranking, Dustin Johnson needs to be ranked, of course. Cam Smith needs to be ranked. But what Rahm's main point, as we've seen time after time, these PGA tournaments, Rahm got half the points that who won the McGladrey or RMC? What was that tournament?
Don't look at me. The Davis Love hit and giggle. That's what I call it.
The Davis Love hit and giggle got twice as many points as the DP. All right, so there's our premise. We need to start with that.
Mm-hmm.
Massively flawed system.
Only in a system where the elite few, the golf aristocracy, got together and tried. And we're going to spot them. We've talked about this off air. Darkstar and I, the show, we're going to spot the OWGR something, at least, for the purpose of honest debate. And that is that they tried. That they tried to be objective and they tried to come up with a system that would work. It didn't work out that way. Clearly, it's not designed correctly. But we're going to choose to believe that it wasn't with ill intent that they came. And now that may not be true, but that's what we're going to choose to. But the system they've come up with allows for some hit and giggle to have many, many more points available to it than the World Championship for the European Tour. To Darkstar's point,
and I think the one analogy
to Rahm's point, too.
Right. To Rahm's point.
I'm going to be as blunt as I can. I think the OWGR right now is laughable.
Laughable.
Laughable. The fact that the RSM doesn't have any in the top 20 in the world has more points at this event where we have 7 of the top 20 is laughable. The fact that Wentworth had less points than Napa, having players in the top 10 in the world, is laughable. I understand what they're trying to do with the depth of field, but having the best players in the world automatically makes a tournament better. I don't care what their system says. I think they've made a mistake. I think some aspects of it might be beneficial, but I think they've devalued the value of the better players. Depth of field doesn't mean better tournament.
But the analogy we were going to use to start, if I got 100 Volkswagens racing against a Ferrari, the Ferrari's still going to win every time.
Yes, I love that analogy, by the way.
So who cares how many Svensons are in the event So you've got to come to some middle, and obviously our concept here is you got to come to some middle ground. Everybody shouldn't get a point. Everybody shouldn't bring points. So how do we fix it? How do we change it? Yeah. What are we really looking at?
Yeah, and we're not just critics. We're thinking about it, right? This is the Thinking Man show, and we have ideas. This is the right chance to say this, Parkstar. You agree? This is a working show. It's a working show. This is not baked. We haven't spent a year trying to come up with this, and for $1 million, we'll do that. If somebody wants to send us a fee, we'll come up with a great PowerPoint presentation on how this thing should work, because we think we have some good ideas. But it's a work in progress. So we're looking for comments. We're looking for feedback from our audience and others.
Yeah. So my second point here is they tried to take 100% of the subjectivity out. We had talked about this before, the Jumbo Osaki phenomenon. And you can't do that. You cannot, when you're dealing with the entire world and you're dealing with multiple tours, there has to be somebody, the adult in the room, who says, and it's funny, I paraphrase from Rory, because Rory wants to get Greg out of the room. He could be somewhat of an adult, but that's a separate story. Who's going to say, hey, we got this tournament over in America and Georgia. There's a few decent players. They're trying to work their way up. And then we have the flagship event, the DP Tour, with a bunch of major winners, top guys, top 10 players in the world. Maybe we're off a little bit that the Georgia tournament, the Georgia Peaches tournament, gets twice the points as the DP finals. I don't know. Is that just me? That somebody should be able to step in and say maybe there's an issue there?
They just screwed up. They ran through a bunch of algorithms, as Rory said, for 5 years, as Rory said. So we're told that this has been in the works for a long time. Not sure why that would be, or who would be jonesing for that. Maybe this is a good opportunity to say, because I asked this question as a somewhat rhetorical, but also an honest question, which is why do we even care? Why do we care about the points? Why do the professional players care a lot or a little about these points? And the answer is, well, it's a free pass to the majors. You don't have to qualify for the Opens, the Open Championship and the U.S. Open. And Augusta has signed on to using these things to invite their list, not the whole thing, but whatever that is, the first 50 slots at Augusta, first 50 at the U.S. Open, first 50 at the Open Championship, I believe is the math that they're using. The PGA Championship also signed on. So it's the majors that are driving this. And that's it.
Yeah, so the concept, it's the majors and those world golf events. It's all those areas where the best players in the world are supposed to get together. Okay? Now, what's bastardizing the system is when you have people like Davis Love saying, oh, my tournament I'd like to see it elevated next year. Really, Davis? I think I got points. Did I make the cut? I can't remember. But, it's lunacy. So you have fringe people like Davis trying to grab notoriety, attention, and meanwhile, we're missing the point. We just said the point is to get the best players in the world at the biggest tournaments. And that's one of the things where the PGA Tour has really screwed up and lost their audience. You got a tournament every week. Nobody cares about 45 of the 52 tournaments, right?
Yeah, the system is flawed. So how do we fix it? Well, I think my personal opinion is you have to start with the objective. And then everything comes behind that. What is the objective? What's the goal here? To identify the best players in the world. If they're from Antarctica, if they play under a rock, it doesn't matter. We want to find them. We want to have a system that somehow, it's not easy, can rank them, because the guy in Antarctica might be a phenom, but he's not playing against anybody in Antarctica. So how do we do that? And that's challenging. It's not simple, and there's ways to screw it up, etc. But the system they have now, where it just favors the PGA Tour, and that's not working. So if the objective is to find and rank every player, then clearly it applies to LIV immediately. That's just the most obvious thing, but there's other obvious things. But yeah, you have to rank Dustin Johnson. You have to rank Bryson DeChambeau and a whole bunch of other guys on the LIV Tour. And this isn't a show about LIV, really isn't. But if they're not being ranked, then your system is broken. If you came to a legitimate body of people, fair-minded people, and say, hey, we have this system for ranking players in the world. Whoa, how do you do this? How do you do that? And what about these guys on that, that breakaway tour? What are you doing there? Oh, no, we're not ranking them at all. Okay, go back to your homework, students. You'd be dismissed from business school class. You're like, no, you missed the point of the project. You have to rank everybody. Go find another system. And you throw them out immediately.
Right. So a couple quick things then. We have to be more in the Rahm camp where things are laughable. And they need to be changed. And they need to be changed a little quicker because obviously these LIV guys are falling down the world. They're just tumbling, free falling down the world rankings, which is not correct. So as I had mentioned, the pendulum swung too far. So you got to bring some subjectivity back into it. And you can't be ranking. You can't be giving everybody points. This isn't sixth grade little league. Everybody doesn't get a trophy here. This is professional golf at the highest level. So let's put the pendulum back more towards the middle. Let's get back more towards finding out who truly are the best players in the world. And one of the other things about the goal, the objective here, and this is where, like I said, I strongly think the PGA Tour and their dilution of their product is crushing their product. We need to get these best players together for more than just the majors. When you watch a LIV event, and I know you hate that I talk about LIV so much, but I know that those top players that I want to see are going to be there every week. The PGA Tour needs to get together and say, hey, we need to have our 10 tournaments, and they're creating the Super Tour event, but that all the best players are going to be there. For how many years did Phil Mickelson and Tiger Woods play on the PGA Tour, and they were never at the same event unless it was a major? We've got to get back to actually making golf for the fans, too. So you're going to actually, check off a lot of boxes by fixing the OWGR and getting these players back to playing more than just the majors also. So,
yeah, and I want to focus on how to do that. It's broken, and I think most everybody knows that it's broken. But it's broken in favor of the PGA Tour, and so they're okay with that. If I were one of the majors, I wouldn't be okay with it. I don't know why they are wanting a weaker than otherwise they would have field. So how do you fix it? I think fundamentally, perhaps that maybe I would throw this out there, then I would try to break it, which is the right way to come up with an operating concept. Get your best idea, then try to ruin it. And if you can't break it, then it's good. And maybe you can improve it even more. But first thing you do is try to break it. So I think it should start with money. I think prize money being offered for a valid tournament is potentially the top driver for me. And what's a valid tournament then becomes a crucial part of the Constitution. The Constitution of the golf rankings. Here it is. Here's the rule book, and then it applies to everybody in a way that works for everybody. So if the Sultan of Brunei wants to have a tournament for 20 guys and offer $50 million first prize, is that a valid tournament? Maybe, maybe not. It's a lot of money, so who's going to show up? All the best players. Whoever he'll let in play want to go and try to win that, as long as it's on a good golf course and a nice place to be, the travel isn't too onerous, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there's some assumptions there. So it's not just the money. Nobody's going to go play in Antarctica in the middle of winter for $50 million. It's not going to happen. But what makes a valid tournament? So let's assume, just for the sake of debate, that prize money is a fundamental ingredient to a tournament that's going to be valid. Then what are the other characteristics of that tournament? What do they need to be? And I know you want to comment on that, Darkstar, but we have some thoughts on what constitutes a valid tournament. Then once you have a valid tournament with appropriate prize money, then you have the basis for awarding points for that tournament. But what do you think makes a valid tournament, Darkstar? It's kind of a long list, actually.
Well, it just made me think of something off script again. You have some simple fixes.
We're going to have to call you Dr. Off Script instead of Dr. Darkstar.
My mind, it wanders. I can't help it.
Not during surgery.
What's a little left? What's a little left of my mind wanders a lot. So you can have some simple criteria. So, for example, if you do not have a top 10 player in the world at the event, you cut down the points by 15%. If you don't have, say, let's call it 10 guys in the top 25, you take off 10%. If you don't have, at least 20 guys in the top 50, you take, you can have percent decrease, which would, if we want to stick to the subjective, we want to get rid of the subjective, we want to stick to objective, then let's start being realistic and saying, hey, you got nobody in the top 10 at an event, it can't be worth that much, right?
Yeah, I like that thinking a lot. I think maybe let me add a little ditty onto the prize money, and then I want to circle back to the tournament setup format that needs to be a certain way in order for it to be a valid tournament. So that, right. And the reason I like that approach is once you've issued the directives to the whole golfing world, the golfing universe signs up and agrees to these criteria. If you have a valid tournament, which includes the prize money, then you're in. It doesn't take 10 years, 2 years, 1 year, 8 years. It's not some weird approval process. We're the World Golf Rankings. We want to rank everybody immediately. And that should be their objective. But the idea that you should not award points to everybody, I like that. I like that a lot. But and then all the other criteria that go into it after the prize money, because what's the dot I wanted to put on it? Players will seek out money over time, assuming that the primary conditions are met, meaning it's a nice golf course, it's a nice event, it's in a nice place, it's not hard to get to. I feel safe when I'm there. There's a long list of things that we don't want to go over here, but the money becomes crucially important when you know that your airplane is going to actually arrive at your destination. Then you can shop airlines. If it's risky, your plane could crash on the way, you don't care if it's a free seat in first class or not. You're not getting on. So you have to have these tournaments that look very similar in their general nature, top golf course, top nice place to be, all those things, well taken care of, well run, well administered, easy travel, all those things. Then you talk about money. So the players over time will find those tournaments. It doesn't matter all those other things. But so the prize money I like as is a very important criteria, because the Sultan of Brunei could have a tournament that has the top 20 players in the world, and it should get points. Yeah, it should. Right. It should.
And that's my point about the pendulum swinging too far from the original premise by McCormick. Certainly it was all based on money initially, because that was the whole concept.
Mark wanted winners. He thought winning was the most important. Not the only, but the most important one. So if you won the South African Open, fine. Or the Sun City tournament, good. Yeah, that means you're good. How good? You're not as good as the Masters champion, true. So we'll weight it that way. Yeah, but that was his fundamental belief, that no matter where you won a tournament, winning mattered more than anything else. That's why he only wanted points for the top, I think, 10 slots or 15.
Top 10 was initially, but the other point is
in each tournament.
He could not foresee the number of tournaments every week. I mean, back when he was arranging this system, you had a 6-month golf season. You had the PGA Tour. You had
started in 1968, right?
Yeah, you had a few tournaments on the European Tour. You didn't have 5 or 6. They're ranking 6 and 7 tournaments every week. So if you won, literally, like I said, there was a tournament in New Zealand or Australia this week, you got like 3.5 points, which is a lot more than finishing, say, 20th in the DP Championship. Like I said, there's too many variables now that they can't take into account for.
Yeah, and we're trying to create a better system. I think money. So what goes into a valid tournament? Well, a certain number of holes. You can't have 18 holes. Why? Because a fluke can win. Somebody can have an unbelievable day chipping and putting, and they chip it in twice and they sink everything they look at. Are they the best player for that tournament? No. I think professionals would agree. This is why the players being a part of this process is so important. They would say, no, that's a fluke. You need to do that again tomorrow. Okay, so we need at least 36 holes. What about 54? What about 72? Is 72 too many? But now I would argue, in this, for the sake of speed for the episode today, that 72 holes is, you could argue, too many holes, unless, and here comes I get to sneak in a point for the LIV guys, unless you're doing shotgun starts. 72 holes is too many holes. Why? Because conditions vary too much. It's just too many variables. You're going to have a wet morning. I'm going to have a dry afternoon. It's going to be windy in the afternoon. It's calm in the morning. That's too many variables. Now the best player is not going to be identified. Now nature is playing too much of a role. Do I go early and then late? So I have a whole day of rest. That's an advantage that starts to tilt the winner in the wrong direction. You want pure competition. Ideally, you want every player playing in the exact same conditions, and I liken it to a test. In golf, everybody is graded on a curve. There is no A. There's only me better than you. Okay, just like college. Fine. So, but you don't take your tests on different days with different techniques. You're on a computer, I'm on paper. You take it Wednesday, I take it next Saturday. You have 2 tests in a row on 2 different subjects. I have just this one to prepare for. You start to slant the outcome too much. So ideally, now sometimes you can't get around that, but ideally, you want every player to play in exactly the same circumstance. So shotgun start moves the ball a long way in that direction. Everybody's got the same weather. Everybody has more or less the same golf course, the same greens, the same firmness, the same lack of firmness. All that stuff starts to equalize. And if you're doing that, do I really need 72 holes? No, I don't think so.
Well,
I don't think so at all. I think 36 is the minimum because you got to get rid of flukes, and 54 helps get rid of flukes. I'm not arguing for a 54-hole format like LIV has. I'm just saying there's no magic to 72 unless you're going to say that you're not going to do shotgun starts because you want bigger fields. Fine, but that's anti-pure ranking. That may be a reality that you cannot get around. That, like, look, we got to have 140, 150 guys in a tournament. We can't just have 70 or 60. How do we do that with a shotgun start? Yes, okay, fine, but that doesn't eliminate the notion that having variable conditions, it hurts the rankings. It hurts the rankings because you're going to have players that benefit from that unevenly, and then you'd have to argue, well, but it evens out over time. No. I wouldn't say that's true. No, you only get how many shots at a major. If you get a bad draw, you get bad weather, you get bad something, just unlucky, rub of the green. Fine, that's golf. But now we're talking about rankings, and the rankings you want to engineer around those that variability as much as you possibly can. Darkstar, what do you think of that?
Well, I like obviously anything that makes things more equitable is what we're looking for. So, by the way, let's have certain tournaments. That was my whole point. Is only certain tournaments I think should carry weight of rankings.
I agree with that.
In my opinion, that whole Georgia tournament, there's not enough quality of field to actually be a ranked tournament. I think the winner, and I think it's Svensson. I really hope I'm right on that because but I want to say he went from 170th to like 70th in the world. And Rahm won the DP, and he went from 5th to 5th.
Yeah, right.
God, explain that to me.
What if you only gave points for the majors?
Yeah. I mean,
let's just throw that out there. What's wrong with that?
Right.
Maybe that's stupid, but it's not completely stupid. Well, but not everybody plays in the majors. Yeah, then it becomes, well, how do you get into the majors?
Well, here's the point. The point is you have those top 50 players in the world that are going to play in the majors, play in the OWG events, and really it's just those events, and I don't know where LIV's going to fit into that, but you should almost have a major league ranking and a minor league ranking, okay? If you're a top 50 guy, you're in these you're in the super tours, you're in the rankings. I have a huge problem with the whole dilution of the PGA Tour and all of these stupid tournaments.
Well, then you're saying you're just awarding too many points overall.
Yeah, you're awarding. Well, yes, you're awarding way too many points overall. These minor tournaments should be like worthless points. They should all be like, let's face it, all these minor tournaments should be like the Corn
Let's get real.
Ferry.
Let's pretend that somebody like at the R&A, steeped in history, maybe an older person, said, hey, we can't award points to every tournament. That wouldn't be smart. That doesn't help. Because all the good top players in the world are obviously not going to play at every tournament. Not going to happen.
Yeah.
So, and then somebody on the PGA Tour, I can imagine saying, hang on a second, August. But we need to get guys to go to these tournaments. They don't show up if we don't give them a reason to be there. Now, I would say, then make it worth more money. If you want guys to go, make it worth more money. And you have to manage your own schedule, PGA Tour. You can't have 50 events and expect the top players to play in all 50 events because they have kids and they have a life and they need to rest and they need to train and they need to practice. And they're not going to do that. And through history, you can go ask the top players of the last 50 years. They're all alive still. Gary Player, Lee Trevino, Jack Nicklaus. Go ask them. Tom Watson. They're all there. How many tournaments make sense? Oh, about 20.
Yeah.
About 20.
Right.
It's about 20. That's what makes sense. So that's the tournaments that should be getting points. Now, where in the world should those be? That's not all the same 20 tournaments, right? So it's complicated, but it's achievable, I think.
Right. And one other thing that you were alluding to with the whole shotgun starts and things like that, I am so tired of these par 72s that are really par 68s. If I can reach the par 5s in 2, it's not a par 5. Okay? I mean, it's getting a little ridiculous with the concept of the PGA Tour especially has done a lot of things to bastardize their product for quote-unquote ratings and making the courses easy. Everybody wants to see long drives and eagles. Well, no, I don't think everybody does. I want to see my U.S. Open around par. I want to see 6-inch rough, and I want to see the best players in the world tested.
It's an unanswered question. I don't think they know. I think they know, but they don't really know what the fans particularly want. And it keeps changing. If you want a younger fan base, they're going to want something different than an older fan base because there's just differences between people at different stages in their lives. Yeah, I'm not saying that there is a perfect system that does everything exactly the way you'd like it to be, because reality and business and things like that get into the way of that. But you need to start with ideal and then give up some things, just like a great Constitution was once written, right? They started with perfect, and then we can't have that. It's just not going to work. But let's get it as perfect as we can, and then we'll agree, and then we'll have a rule book. So the players need to be involved heavily in how this works, and I think all the players would agree that no matter where you are in the world, you should be identified if you're a top player.
Yeah, teasing them with money is good. I like that concept that sort of popped into my head where, hey, say there's 4 guys in the top 10 at the Memorial, and I'm Jon Rahm, and I'm on the fence. Like, hey, if I show up, there's 5 guys. Now the tournament's worth a lot more world rankings than if I show up the next week and there's only 2 guys in the top 10. I'm going to show up this week and get more points and elevate my status both financially and in the world golf rankings. That's going to put it more in the player's court also, where they can decide.
It may be insulated, though. It could. I don't know. This is a working show, but if the same guys that are ranked high drive the points that are available, then they can collude, without even attempting to collude, and keep the points isolated from others who are not ranked.
Well, and
right?
unfortunately,
so it's harder
that's
to
what's
break
happening.
into that system if you don't already have points. And the OWGR has an element of that right now to it.
Well, that's my point. That's what's going on right now. If you don't have the points in your pocket, if you don't show up with the points, you can't accumulate them. You're not going to get any points on the Australasian Tour.
Yeah.
You're not going to get any. Yeah. Obviously, this was the most egregious. This is why Jon Rahm is calling the system laughable. You're showing up at the DP Championship, and you're getting, I think it was almost half. It was a little over half the points.
Yeah, it was
than
19
winning the
versus
McGladrey.
38. I want to say 19 points, or 18 or 19 for the DP, and 38 for the RMS. Yeah.
Is it that? I don't know.
It was that, or very close to that. Yes. It was a big difference, and it was what got his ire up.
Shocking difference.
Yeah, that's why he was ticked off about it, and he made no bones about it.
37 versus 22.
You know what? You're a football guru. Let me throw this at you, and then we'll wrap. And then we're going to obviously have to have multiple shows on this topic. It's a working show. We're going to have to do it again. If I mean, NBA, NFL, Major League Baseball, these American sports, I'm sure it works the same for soccer and cricket. And you pick your game. If you can, if you're capable of doing what I'm about to say, then you do it. And those big sports in America do exactly what I'm about to say, which is scour the world. You scour the world looking for the best players to come and play in your league because you want the best players. You want the best talent. It's the best product. Golf should be doing that. So how do you do that? They don't do that now. They don't look at it that way. They need to have big tournaments in Australia, in Japan, in Korea, in South Africa, in Europe, for the purpose of finding great players. You got to go have tryouts. You got to have some way of doing that. You can't just have it where, you know, everybody ends up in the United States because that's where the TV audience is. That's not how the NBA does it. That's not how football does it in America. They go find these guys and they bring them over here somehow and make it work. So how do you do that in golf? Don't know. Future topic. But I'd love everybody's comments and ideas on that. But that without doing that, you're never going to identify the player in India or China or any other big populated place who would be great. Pakistan. I mean, there's a lot of places, a lot of people, Indonesia, that would produce, I'm sure, good players if you were looking for them. If you were looking for them. And that would be growing the game. That would literally be growing the game. Right.
Yeah, they're growing. It's hard. You have to come to the United States under the present system. It's a broken system before it even got implemented.
Yeah. And that is a system, but it's not ideal. It's not even close. No. It's just not close. And it doesn't grow the game. It shrinks the game. So it fails on a lot of levels. I'm sure it succeeds on some. It's certainly good if you're an incumbent. It's great if you're Rory. It's great.
Yeah.
It's great if you're Rahm. Hey, hats off to Jon. Jon, hats off to you for being a top player who's still spouting off about the failings of the system, even though it's benefiting you, which it is.
Right.
Good for him. You know, he's a straight shooter. That's great. It's awesome. I can work with a guy like that, even if he doesn't like LIV, which he apparently does not. It'd be interesting to have dinner with those guys. I cannot believe that you couldn't persuade them that a LIV type Super League is good for the game. It just is. I don't see how you can look at it any other way. I don't know why they.
Like I said, my big frustration as a fan is you never see all the good players together except for the majors.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Competing at the majors is phenomenally important and drives excitement and great tournaments. But having the ability to now have LIV guys versus PGA Tour guys at the majors is very spicy and interesting, and it'll drive in fan viewership, etc. But having outside events where it's LIV versus them, you know, LIV versus PGA Tour in some tournament. If I were the PGA Tour, I'd want LIV guys at the players. Hell yeah. I mean,
I think it's a big enough event; they should be there. What's interesting is in
no
the
better
last
way to
couple
shit on a tournament, to shit on a competitor than to beat them.
Well, also you have to remember, there's been no. Just real quick, there has been players that played in LIV events in these last couple European events, and nobody mentioned anything about it. It's like, hey, there's a couple LIV guys there. They played on this event and this event and LIV.
I tell you, the pressure would be on. Can you imagine being Dustin, Bryson, Reed, Koepka, all the top guys, and I'm sure I'm leaving some guys out. Oh, Cam Smith, obviously.
Cam Smith, yeah.
If you invite the top 10 LIV guys to the players, there's a lot of pressure on them. A lot of pressure on them to perform. Because if they go there and get slaughtered, it diminishes LIV in a big way.
Yeah.
In a huge way.
By the same token, I would want them there. If I'm going to win a players, if I'm going to win a major, I want the best players. I'd almost like Martin Keimer said, we did a show with I think it was the DJ episode where Keimer had said, had DJ been in the playoff, would I have won that PGA? And that's always in the back of his mind.
At Whistling Straits. Yeah.
At Whistling Straits. Exactly. If I win the players and none of the LIV guys are there, I'm like, did I really win the players?
No. Well, you didn't beat the best field in the world.
Yeah. I didn't beat that field that I'm supposed to beat to be a players champion.
And everybody knows
makes it special.
Everybody knows it. I just don't understand, and we got to wrap, but I just don't, and we're going to continue this topic. We're going to get right back on it. I just don't understand, as a competitor, as an athlete, Why do I have a problem with LIV if I'm on the PGA Tour? They didn't take money away from me. They as a player, they've given me more money because the tour came up with money. They found the money they were hiding. Maybe long term it's not sustainable. Maybe that's what they're worried about. They're gonna suck all the air out of professional golf. There's not gonna be enough money left for the PGA Tour. I don't think that's true. I just don't know what you can't put your finger on what the problem is. I can't. Can you? What is the problem? What fundamentally is evil about having a second league tour?
And like I said, in my opinion, as I stated earlier, it's just become the wild, wild west after LIV, and everybody who's still on the PGA Tour is out for themselves. Rory's got his tomorrow sports.
That's okay.
Rahm wants the competition. I don't see that nobody's looking out for the best interest of golf right now.
It'd be nice. Yeah, that's all true. But what I'm saying is, hey, somebody in our audience that is a diehard PGA Tour fan and hates LIV, give me the reason. Don't tell me that you hate the Saudi Arabians. Maybe you do. You got to give me a reason why having another league is a bad thing. I really want to know. I really do. All right, B Team is out.
All right, Dr. Darkstar's out.
That's all for this video. For Dr. Darkstar and me, thanks for watching. This is a show about finding logical conclusions, and we appreciate you coming along with us. We'll be adding episodes as fast as we can. There's certainly no shortage of things going on in this world.